Welcome to Pixelated episode 106. I'm your host, Will Saddleberg. This week, Abner and I join Damien as he walks us through his earliest impressions of Google's new home speaker. Design and style, sound quality, ecosystem, and Gemini. We have questions and Damien has answers. After the break, we're joined by Jonah Becker and Taylor Helgren from Google to talk about the launch of the Fitbit Air and Google Health. It's all coming up after this word from our sponsor, Bitwarden. This week's episode of Pixelated is sponsored by Bitwarden, the trusted open source solution for passkey, password, and secrets management. Bitwarden helps you create strong and unique credentials across all your accounts and devices, so you never have to reuse the same passwords everywhere. With end-to-end encryption and secure autofill, Bitwarden helps defend against phishing attacks and data breaches, while making logins easier across every device. If you're using Android or a Pixel device, Bitwarden really shines. It autofills passkeys and passwords across Chrome, other Android browsers, and native apps, so there's no more switching back and forth to copy and paste credentials. The Android app also supports dynamic colors with Material U, so the app UI and icon automatically match your wallpaper palette for a fully cohesive Android experience. Bitwarden is also a powerful alternative to Google Password Manager because it is fully open source, cross-platform, and designed so your vault follows you everywhere, not just on Android. You can autofill passkeys, passwords, cards, and identities across all your accounts, and even generate strong new credentials directly from the sign-up form without leaving the page. Trusted by over 15 million users and 80,000 businesses across 180 countries and 50+ languages, Bitwarden remains committed to transparency and making secure password management accessible to everyone with a free plan for individuals. You can get started with a free individual Bitwarden plan by hitting the link in the show notes or by visiting bitwarden.com/9to5mac. That's bitwarden.com/9to5mac. Thank you to Bitwarden for sponsoring Pixelated.
So welcome along, gang. I have been using the Google Home speaker this week. I have been excited for this as a Nest Mini enthusiast for the better part of a decade, and a Home Mini before that. I have a ridiculous amount of smart home hardware. What I know you guys haven't kind of been using these speakers. Is there anything you would love to know as someone who is the oracle of the Google Home speaker at this point in time?
So the ring of lights at the bottom, it is definitely more interesting than the Home Mini, than the Nest Mini, than the Nest Audio before it. The original Google Home had pretty good feedback. Mm-hmm. So how are you liking that design choice, which is really the only really main design thing going on?
Do you know what? It was something that when I saw the original images for it, I think it was leaked by the guy who won F1. I can't remember his name now. He's Englishman as well, McLaren driver. I just remember seeing it for the first time and seeing those lights and thinking, that seems interesting. Google doesn't tend to do lights in this format. Over the past 3 or 4 days, I've been using this intently. It definitely feels like an upside down Siri speaker. The HomePod Mini, it just feels like the antithesis of the HomePod Mini, which again feels really, really odd. The lights are a really nice way, because I do think that do you remember the 4-dot setup? Is it 4 dots on the Home Mini?
Yes,
I'm probably incorrectly specifying that. You kind of have to be at the perfect angle to see those every time.
Yes.
And I feel like with the actual 360 speaker, you get in that feedback. You can see it in more places, especially in like a dark room. I tried putting it in my bedside cabinet. Regret doing that straight away. There doesn't seem to be a way to kind of like disable the lights entirely from what I can tell. I haven't messed around enough to do that. It is nice to get the feedback. I can't deny that. I just don't understand why this is already or suddenly the thing on this speaker of all speakers. I don't know why. I felt like 4 dots might have been a throwback. They may have stuck with it, but I guess that's not Gemini, is it? So
I think you're right. The 360-degree design is probably why they've done the ring, but at the same time, why is it blue and purple? That's the old Gemini color scheme. I wonder if it supports other colors, like if they can. That's something. If it's a full RGB thing, and they can change it up in the future.
Do you know what? I really like. There's one little tiny touch. You mentioned RGB when you initially start speaking to the speaker, and It glows white, and it is a very bright white, I might add. It's almost like a flashlight or a torch on your phone like camera. It is that bright. And then all of a sudden you get a very, very brief, and I love this touch, like a little rainbow, the Google G color rainbow. And then it goes into that blue purpley color. That's great. But on the RGB thing, I don't know why Google hasn't added visualization for music. Like, I feel like they could add this in.
Yeah.
Like, it would be really, really cool.
That'd be awesome.
The amount of times I'm like, I've been listening to Spotify, I've listened to YouTube Music, I've been casting Pocket Casts, just putting it through its paces. And that alone would be phenomenal touch. I don't know. I feel like they've maybe saving that for a future update, possibly. Maybe we could have a Google Home speaker, a feature drop or something along those lines. I could definitely see that being a thing. I would have loved to have seen what they could do with the colors, like you say, Abner. It would be fantastic, because I only have the really, and I don't mean to say it crappy, but that's the only way I can describe it. We have the crappy porcelain, and I think I'm calling it obsidian, but it's hazel, isn't it? It's technically hazel, like a really, really deep
Google's
green.
parlance, yeah.
Yeah, it looks black to me, but it again, I think they've done a great job with the light. I think it is a really, really cool addition. It just probably needs a little bit of fine tuning. I don't know.
You know, it's funny. It's not quite to this degree, but the thing that this just reminded me of, the thing that you jogged my memory of, Damien.
Yeah, is
the Pixel tablet, weirdly, and not quite to this degree, but it is interesting to hear you be like, I would love, I've had the speaker for a week or whatever, a little less than a week. I've already had this idea of like, what a thing I would add to it in a software upgrade, like, but the speaker was announced so long ago. I would have loved to have seen, like, that's how I felt about the Pixel tablet too, where it was announced like forever in advance, and then it came out and I was like, why doesn't it have this, this, and this? This is not quite to that degree, but it's immediately what reminded me of it. Like, Google will kind of have that albatross around its neck forever for me, because there was so much missed potential in the Pixel tablet that they never followed up on, that anytime I hear about where even something as simple as like, why didn't they lean more into the music visualizer aspect? It's like, that is a good point. Why didn't they do that? Like, you came up with that idea after a few days of use.
I mean, it was genuinely a few hours. Within a few hours,
even better, right? And that's how I felt about when we learned about the Pixel tablet, and I was like, so you can cast to the speaker when the tablet's not docked, right? They were like, no, and I was like, no, you can't. Okay. So kind of going into that before we get to maybe some of the more Gemini stuff, how does it sound? Like when you're not looking at your music visualizer, how does it sound?
Okay, so initially when I set it up, it filled the room. The initial like kind of that pling that Google. I don't know what you would call it. Is it like a Google ding, a Google pling, a Google
chime, maybe
chime? So when that chime came in, I was like, wow, this has filled my office. Like the Nest Mini, which I've used, and I have a Home Mini somewhere. I think I've just unplugged it. They do not have that like oomph, but that probably set me up for failure a little bit, because while I do think the speaker is a marked step up, it still doesn't I think we're kind of in an in-between position where it maybe is not quite where the Nest Audio sits. And if I'm being completely honest, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think it is in terms of spec for spec, but it sounds eerily similar to the speaker dock that comes with the Pixel tablet. And I know that a lot of people have been highly critical of that, but I don't listen to much music on these kind of speakers often. I will listen to maybe a track, I'll listen to podcasts, I'll listen to radio. Right. For me, it's spoken word, but there is so much depth in spoken word now compared to the Nest Mini, which I think probably, I guess, people who are worried about it, you'll have a great time listening to podcasts on this speaker. It is enough to fill a small room. Nice. It is. I know there's some functionality that you can pair it with a Google TV streamer, and I think ahead of time I thought it was limited to stereo pairs, and I know that Google wants to advertise it as that. You can actually pair it with one speaker. I tried it. It was like a cheap soundbar. It probably wasn't great. Yeah. I mean, if you have a very, very old TV or a TV that doesn't have great speakers, or the speakers have blown, you'd probably be absolutely fine. But I don't have that. I don't have an insane TV. I think I have an LG C1, which is, the speakers are fine. They're passable. I don't have room for a soundbar. Oh, I'm not allowed to have a soundbar. Just put it that way. It's not allowed on my TV cabinet. But so this looked like it could be cool.
Is an LG C1 an OLED set?
Yes.
Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
It's just so funny that you're like, I don't have a crazy TV. And then you name an old, like
it's like a 4-year-old.
Most people have the $300 55-inch like Roku TV from Walmart. Like that is the average.
I feel like you probably will have a good experience if you pair it with the TV streamer, but just I know that Google's advertising 360-degree sound. It is 360-degree sound, but if you have that one speaker in front of your TV, you're going to have to find the perfect placement. And then I think you lose a bit of, how would I describe it? Google's attention to detail in the decor side of things. So this is a piece of technology that I think can slide into your home life, probably in ways that a smart speaker can't. And I feel like it would be disappointing to put it in a position like on my TV cabinet. If you go on the website, you can see in the review, I've got a few images of where it probably will live. I've been given, in air quotes, permission to put it there by my partner. She said it's absolutely fine. It looks like a candle. So that's probably like a fancy candle is like the best, like, positive piece of news from someone. They
should have made a candle glow with the ring.
Maybe, yeah.
Why didn't they do like the flicker, the soft orange, like amber flicker?
They could do actually, right? There's so many opportunities. Google. There's so many opportunities they could do with this, and I think
we'll license those ideas to you. You do have to pay us. We don't ideate for nothing.
I'm as you can tell, I'm excited by the design elements of it because I think it sticks with what's tried and true and something I've loved with the Nest Mini for such a long time. There's just a few things that you would think, oh, they would have thought of these because they have this new piece of technology, aka RGB lighting, which every gamer knows you can change the color that you want it to be. But for sound profile, I'm whelmed. I would say I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not underwhelmed. It's what I expected for a $99 speaker of this type. That's not the key selling point, is it? I think it is Gemini, and we'll get into a little bit of what I think Gemini is and isn't with this speaker. It is definitely, for me, having been on the Gemini preview on lots of my devices anyway, it didn't feel like a brand new device. It felt like an augmentation of the system I already have in place. I don't know if you guys have even used the Gemini preview for home at this stage.
I have not.
Mostly on a Nest Hub versus a speaker, since I have the Pixel tablet next to my bed, and that doesn't have the Gemini for whatever reason, Gemini for home. But I have my home devices at this point is the Nest Hub Max in common areas, and I still find more utility from having a display.
I think this is the thing. I think having come from displays, we kind of gone. It feels almost like we've gone beyond the dedicated speaker situation for interactions with ChatGPT and Gemini. I think you do need a visual element there because sometimes you kind of want the conversation is nice, and I do use Gemini Live on a regular basis. I just don't think I will use it in this form factor. I still feel like I'm falling into the habit and the trap of give it a prompt or a direction. Oh, turn on these lights, turn off this thing, open this, whatever it happens to be. I'm still falling into that trap because for me, Gemini is more at home in other form factors. I don't know if everyone will be the same.
No, that's a very good point, because voice assistants, there is still a place and time for voice assistants. And I would say that most people have been conditioned through the voice assistants for the past 10 years. Simple prompts, simple commands. They just want stuff done, automated in their home, and they don't necessarily want feedback from it. They just want the command issued and get it done. So there is still a time and place for this, and we'll get to how much of a market success we think this will be. But yeah, how has that smart home command experience been for you?
So I think one thing I really like is how, obviously I've started that early transition because we knew this device was coming. So I made that transition to the Gemini preview on my existing speakers. I think in the back of my mind, I was like, let me get prepared for the piece of hardware that's coming. So I'm already conditioned, you use a good term there, Abner, I think. The old Google Assistant input-output interface is great for lots of people. And I don't doubt that that it's made a lot of fans of the Google Assistant and Google hardware. For me, Gemini bends and flexes and molds into my requests exponentially better. And I can't honestly, hand on heart, say I've had as many problems as some other people have said that they've had online. I think that being able to go from a specific request, i.e. turn on the office TV, turn on my office lighting, set it to a nice candlelight color at 50% brightness. If I try to do that with the Google Assistant, it's a no-go. I do wonder if a lot of that is to do with the cloud processing of those requests. Here on the home speaker, everything seems to be, okay, give me all the information that you want. I'll take a millisecond or a second or so. Everything's getting processed. I really do think that for a lot of people, that might be an eye-opener, and they may have a better experience than they're potentially having with the preview, because everything can be processed locally and there's no delay to that. I wonder if there's something to do with the improved internals as well. Like the Wi-Fi chip is exponentially better. I'm not having issues in the extremities of my house plugging it in. Everything seems to be just as good. Whereas the Nest Mini, there was certain parts of my home I couldn't put it. Like it would just disconnect. I'd be playing something on the radio, cuts out, have to start from scratch again with the Assistant and with Gemini. So I think in that respect, I'm very, very impressed with how Gemini is able to handle my complex requests. And I'm the kind of person, I don't know if you guys are the same, where you'll be like, oh, you forget, you have a little bit of a brain fog and you say something and you're like, oh, why would I want to turn that light on again? And Gemini can actually handle it. And I think that's a game changer. I'm really intrigued to see how Google handles updates for Gemini specifically for this speaker, or is Gemini just going to get updated? Are they going to target this? I'm not sure.
I think Gemini is just probably going to get updated. But you bring up a good point about the hardware itself. There are meaningful upgrades. That said, the caveat is that Google waited so long to update to release new hardware. So it is partially a problem of their own making. But in terms of upgrade, and if you have a Nest Mini or you have an existing lineup, there will be meaningful hardware improvements for you to consider. But I guess this is the broader question I want to get to. Who is buying this home speaker? Who, like you said, Damien, you had a lot of home minis in the past, and I doubt that many people, that there will only be a few people that will consciously upgrade every single speaker in the house through this home speaker. So what does the upgrade proposition look like?
It's a fantastic question, because I've been trying to think about this all week. I think, okay, let me broadly talk about why I think it's tough for people to make the switch from the Nest Mini and the Nest Minis particularly, not necessarily the Home Mini. The Nest Mini was created almost as like we're going to refresh the Home Mini and make it more of you can put this anywhere device. They created the little hook on the back of it, so you can obviously you can literally hook it up anywhere. It's small and lightweight, so you could and they were so ubiquitous and cheap. They basically were giving them away as part of Google. I think I got 3 with Google One.
Like I said, if you bought a Home Mini or Nest Mini, you did something wrong.
I mean, I was gifted one by my partner's parents a long time ago, and I think they paid full price for it. So I think it was about £50 here in the UK, and I was like, you do realise I've just been given one free by Google One, and my girlfriend was like, don't say anything to them. Don't mention that. But yeah, I think with the Nest Mini, if you have multiple in your home, and I know a lot of people have kind of will have them connected to a power outlet. I know the brackets that you can buy. You can buy a bracket and it hangs off our power outlet. I don't think that's ever going to, well, if it does exist for this device, it's going to be very heavy and more robust. And it looks obvious, because of it's almost I think it's 2.1 times bigger or something along those lines. It is taller. It is marginally wider. You are going to notice it plugged into the wall, as much as it might look like a fancy candle from a distance. For most people, I don't think, as bad as it sounds, I don't think there's much of unless you want an audio experience upgrade, reason to make a switch. I think as well, I think there's going to be a lot of hardware holdouts who are like, I hate Gemini. I only want Google Assistant to control my lights. Then again, online we tend to see the rage bait and the negative. We don't tend to see as many positives because people are just happy with what they want and they don't talk about it online. I'm very, very interested to see what those people say, like the kind of people who are very, very angry at everything that anyone ever does online. Are they going to be happy about this speaker? Probably not. I think if you start to get it discounted, if it's closer to $50, £50 here in the UK, I think it probably will sell quite well because the speaker is decent. I don't know what it's like compared to some of the Amazon hardware, the Echo stuff. I'd imagine it's on par with that. I'm sure that Google engineers were looking at it and thinking we need to at least match them and exceed them. Gemini is going to completely wipe the floor with what an Amazon Echo device can do, and it will do for a long time to come. So, yeah, I think it's definitely the kind of people who are probably like me, who cannot remember half of the Google Assistant commands that they've been using for a decade. Turn on this light, turn off that light. Well, I don't need to worry about that. I can do it all in one sentence. I think that's probably enough of an upgrade for some people who have lots and lots of devices. And I can never remember what anything's called in my home. I've named every single wall outlet, and I'm always forgetting what switch 7 is. Where is that? Like, I don't know what that one is. Yeah, I think those people might gain a big benefit from it. The kind of forgetful smart home enthusiast, and I put myself in that category.
Yeah, mine are labeled horribly. It's
bad, isn't it?
Organize my Google Home library of devices has been on my to-do list for years. Like years of me being like, one of these days I really need to go in and clean out some of the devices that I don't use anymore, or that like were unplugged the last time we moved 4 years ago and never got plugged back in.
Yeah.
Like I should do this one of those days, but I never get to it.
I mean, they probably should have options for that in the application.
That's a good point. Like have a like, hey, we notice you haven't used floor lamp 3 in 18 months. Do you want to remove it from your account?
Yeah, I think that just kind of reminds me as well how much of the application is relied on for these speakers. I think having used the Nest Hub and the Pixel tablet and I still have the original Home Hub that I use. It's literally in my living room and I use it every single day. I think sometimes that visual element for a smart device is really, really important. I do wonder how Google kind of follows up those devices if we're going to get another smart display. I mean, with a smart display that has Gemini hardware, I'm sure that it'll probably look something like this with a little screen attached, which is absolutely fine by me. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are potentially put off by having a speaker. I do think that Gemini probably lives best on display because you can have that interaction element. For me, I'm not the kind of person who would use it in a kitchen. I know Google kept using kitchen examples in some of their marketing material. I just don't think, for me, I'm a visual cook. I will have a recipe book. I want to follow through and scroll and see what the food's going to look like and compare things. And then I want to be able to read as well as have those audio feedback. I think Gemini Live is great, but it doesn't feel like that's perfectly placed for everyone. So maybe this definitely feels like another reset play. I mean, did we get the Home originally, the Google Home speaker,
right,
the Home Mini? Did we get the Nest Mini and the Nest Hub at the same time? I think it was. And the Home Hub, sorry. I can't remember the exact scenario, but it definitely feels like this is the first play in reintroducing smart displays and getting people ready for them again.
It really is kind of like a full reboot, like 10 years after the fact, because the Google Home speaker, the original Google Home speaker, is now essentially 10 years old, and looks in some ways very similar to this. Like, like not identical, but like it's a canister shaped smart speaker with lights on it. Like, there's only so many ways you can design it, and it isn't like. Are we going to just kind of like, is this like the Hollywood reboot cycle? Like, are we just going to go through like the rebooted smart display, the reboot, like now for the Gemini era? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. I don't see this as like the start of a new lineup. I kind of think that this is, I mean, what would they even name it since they went so basic with the naming? I do wonder if that's actually a hint at how they see these devices, as the Google Home speaker being anyways, naming aside, I kind of think this is their entry for the foreseeable future. I think they think that they need at least one Halo device in their lineup from them, something that they can use and develop with. But I am curious if we're going to like, they're never going to make another Home Max, I don't think. Even that was created at the height of the Google Home first go around Google Home. I don't think we'll see anything like that again in the future, especially in this current wave of devices. As rumored, I think we'll see a new Nest display, but I do think this is like a two device lineup for the foreseeable future, and maybe partners will be able to, third-party hardware partners will be able to build stuff out.
Yeah. The only final thing I would say is that I felt like this was the perfect time for Google to announce or at least introduce the Hey Gemini keyword. It feels so at odds to use that. I'm not going to say it so I don't set off any speakers, but it felt like this could be the perfect opportunity and the kind of the right footing to be like, okay, we're going to introduce a new wake phrase and get that tied to people's lips. I think we've been using the original Google wake word for so long, and it feels at odds with this transition. I'm intrigued to see why that hasn't been the case. And I know people complained about it for a long, long time, having custom commands. Even if it wasn't a custom command and it was just Gemini, I think Hey Gemini would roll off the tongue with the brand new speaker and let it.
I have always tripped over Hey G. Say it either, but it never has. And maybe I'm sure I've said this on another podcast, but it always feels like I'm like coughing it up from my throat. Like that's how that word feels when I'm trying to say it quickly as a wake word. And Gemini, like I agree with you, like rolls off the tongue very well, despite being a syllable longer. It is somehow easier to say. Like, I don't know. I would love, because I agree with you. I custom wake words would be the dream, and Google's rivals have done it, so there's no reason they couldn't do it. But there's little reason they couldn't do it. But even then, I would settle for 2 or 3 variations. Even just the one I would settle for.
Yeah. I think overall, it isn't a bad reboot. I feel like.
But not a lot of surprises either. It's kind of exactly what you would expect it to be.
Yeah, I think it will make certain people happy. It will make certain people unhappy. Some people will have a great time with this. I think for some people who are upgrading, have old hardware, take a look. Go read the review on site right now. There's some definitely more details that we haven't talked about here in the podcast. But we are going to go over to speak to some very, very special people. This is special guests on this episode. And yeah, we'll go speak to them. And hopefully you'll have some fun listening to what the Fitbit team have to say.
Grab your phone and take a look at your app drawer right now. You've probably found yourself relying on these same old apps and services since the Nexus days, and what suited you best back then might not be the right choice in 2026. Luckily, Proton can help bring you into a privacy-first ecosystem built for our modern age. Proton offers practically every service you could possibly need under the sun across every platform, including email, calendar, file storage, password management, document editors, and, of course, a trusted VPN. Built with class-leading end-to-end encryption, Proton's entire suite is fast, intuitive, and secure, and export tools mean you don't need to worry about leaving data behind on those other apps. Pixelated listeners can save 30% off an annual subscription to Proton Unlimited, which includes 500 gigabytes of cloud storage, custom email domains, a dedicated customer support team, and so much more. It's what's best for your current phone, not whatever you were using back in 2013. Upgrade to Proton today and save 30% on your annual subscription by heading to proton.me/9to5google or by clicking the link in the show notes. That's proton.me/9to5google. Thanks to Proton for sponsoring Pixelated.
Welcome along, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you here on Pixelated. I'm Damien. We have Will and we have Abner.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm a product management lead for Google Health.
Hi, I'm Jonah. I'm Director of Design for Wearables at Google.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Jonah and Taylor. I kind of want to get into some fun stuff straight away. I've been thinking desperately about my first interactions with Fitbit, the hardware, the software, everything else in between. And I was speaking to Abner a few weeks ago about this, about our earliest memories with Fitbit hardware. And I remember I want to say 2012, please correct me if I'm wrong. I picked up the Fitbit Charge. Fitbit Charge became my everyday companion. And I wanted to ask you guys, what was your first Fitbit devices, the kind of things that people were asking you questions about, the devices you were wearing, and why you maybe fell in love with it, wore them every day, all that kind of jazz?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. Prior to joining Fitbit, I was with HTC. And so a smartphone manufacturer doing a lot of really amazing Android phones and such. And we had partnered with Under Armour to develop HealthBox. And so I was experimenting with all sorts of different fitness devices. And I think at that time I was wearing a Fitbit Force quite regularly. And when I was introduced, it was interesting, when I was introduced to James Park, the CEO, that's what I was wearing. And so he noticed it, and when we started our conversation. So my early days with Fitbit were with the Force. So similar sort of to the Charge in some ways in terms of sort of its capabilities and such. But those were my early Fitbit experiences.
And what did you love about it? What was like the thing that was like, okay, I'm going to wear this over other devices that are available at the time?
So much of it was just the real time connection and with how I was doing throughout the course of a day, as opposed to like, oh, I went for a run in the morning and that was my health. So I think for me, what Fitbit did then and continues to do is it reminds me that health is 24/7. It's throughout the day, every hour, every week. It is not just when I go to the gym or go for a run, that it is, the choices I make for meals. It is whether I get up, if a meeting wraps up 5-10 minutes early and I step outside and walk around for a bit. It is, sleep consistency, and it's all of those moments. And those are sort of the behaviors throughout the course of any day that lead to health.
How about you, Taylor? First Fitbit device?
My first experience with a tracker was through like a challenge with my employer at the time. I wasn't at Fitbit. I was somewhere else, and they were running a challenge to see, I think, who could do the most distance or steps in a month. And I was a super competitive person and kind of much younger at that time, and I very much wanted to win the challenge. So I think that's what first brought me into the mix, and got me going with trackers. I think my first Fitbit experience that really stayed with me every day was a Fitbit Blaze when I joined the team in 2016. And I remember back then just the conversation starters that you'd pick up as you wore that around, and people would say, "Is that a watch? Is that a tracker? What does that thing do? How do you use it?" So that was my first experience.
Nice.
You kind of reminded me there. We were talking about this. Weirdly, you brought something I wanted to talk about: gamifying stats and kind of like competing with your friends and your family. You mentioned that it was almost like you had a bit of a contest to do the most steps. Like, I have become a little bit obsessed since wearing the Fitbit Air of how I can be the top of the leaderboard. And my record step count, I think this is prior to the Air, was something like 55,000 steps. I did it in Japan last year. I felt like I was going to die. It was too much. Have you guys ever reached a point where you're like, why am I doing these steps? Why am I hitting this step count? Is this for me? Is this to kind of beat somebody else? Is this to be top of the leaderboard? Or is this because I am thinking secretly about my health somewhere along the lines?
That's too funny. I think my record step day is also from a trip to Japan. I think I was in Kyoto, walking around Kyoto with my wife, and similar amount of steps there. So that's funny. I think for me, like the initial impetus was very much kind of a competitive one, as I said. But I think over time, it's become more of an intrinsic motivation, and also just like learning about the value of movement, regular movement throughout the day, and like these shorter bouts of movement, I think has been important on my personal health journey.
Yeah, I think similarly, maybe Taylor and I share the competitive background, sports backgrounds and all this sort of stuff, and just general human nature for some people to be competitive with others. So that has certainly featured prominently in parts of my history, and certainly my history with health tracking and Fitbit. Leaderboards, Fitbit, we used to do step challenges, Walktober, where you would split into teams and by, different functions in the company and have these competitions and things like that. So, and it spurred that sort of competitiveness, which is all obviously about motivation and all with good intent. I have been in my more recent years actively trying to tamp down my competitive nature. Because in some ways, I think it leads to overdoing it, right? You said, hey, I did 55,000 steps and I felt awful. If you're doing 40,000 steps on your average day and you bump up to 55, you're going to be fine. If your average day is 10,000 and you do over 5x, you're going to start to feel maybe that was overdoing it. So for me, it's been a similar journey, and just, having done, been over 10 years sort of with Fitbit and now Google Health, I've seen my own sort of priorities change. Like for the first time, for the first time in the past few weeks, because I'm using, obviously Health Coach, and I've got a bike race this weekend. For the first time really in my life, I'm taking advice from this Health Coach to take rest days when I would have otherwise been training, because my sleep or my readiness, were not where they should be. So I'm maybe finally getting a touch wiser.
Just talking about the first fitness trackers in general. Mine was the Ultra. It was the pebble-shaped one that you were able to clip to your waist. Just thinking about that, in those 10 years ago, people, that competitive aspect of every fitness trackers, pedometers of people starting to really wear that in force. That just brings me back to how step count, people comparing their step counts was such a big thing when these first fitness trackers came out. On that, are you surprised by the almost retro demand for fitness trackers without screens? We've seen the Fitbit Air, we've seen other players in the space in the past few years. From looking at that Fitbit lineage, the first trackers had just minimal screens, and then we got the smartwatches, obviously. But right now, are you surprised by that retro demand for no screens again?
I don't know if I'm surprised. I think in some ways, as a first mover, the brand that defined this health tracking space, with Fitbit, I think just the clarity of what having a daily step goal was. And I would always say it's first and foremost for you. You set your individual goal. Whether that's 5,000 steps a day, whether it's 15,000 steps. So it's about, achieving something that you feel good about. Now, naturally, some people start to compete with others, and we have leaderboards and challenges and all this other sort of stuff that would encourage that. Certainly, there was some media coverage and writing about, people and, the motivation they found by competing with others over their step counts. And so I think in terms of an initial incredibly strong momentum for the space, something so that is that easy to understand. How many steps did I take? I think it just create a great amount of momentum for the space. But I think we're also 10 years later. I think the amount of changes that we have in terms of technology that demands our attention across, whether smart homes, what's going on in computers, other types of wearables, it sort of surrounds us. So I think the idea that it can be a little bit more quiet and more subtly integrated into your life, I think makes a lot of sense. And I think this is something we were talking about. I mean, Fitbit Air is not Fitbit's first screenless tracker. We had several, right, in the early days. What I think we have now with the new Google Health app and Health Coach is a really compelling, engaging sort of app and service that can guide you. I think Fitbit we were doing a great job at reflecting your data back to you, but in terms of the forward-looking guidance and meeting you where you are and helping take you the steps forward and what do I do today and what do I do next week and how do I get where I want to be, I think that's really where I see the acquisition and the partnership between Fitbit and Google really delivering on the promise of this union.
Is that basically where the inspiration behind Health Coach came from? Like looking at this data that you're already good at tracking and collecting and being like, okay, how do we present this in a new, maybe clearer way to users than we were doing before?
Yeah, I think that's really at the core of it. I think it came from that insight. Plus, I think just an evolution in consumer expectation. As I kind of reflect on, like the time that I've been with Fitbit and now into Google Health, I may oversimplify things into some eras where like each era leading up to now was about like a tracker or an app or device, like illuminating a new part of your health. Right. Like you started with steps, then it became heart rate, then it was sleep. In COVID, it was vitals. Coming out of COVID, it was like how you take data from vitals and translate that to things like stress and recovery. I think increasingly there are a ton of options for folks to learn about themselves and get insight into that data. I think with that are increased expectations that, okay, I now know something about myself. What do I do with it? And I need some help, guiding me to take that next step. And I think the intent of the Google Health Coach is really to be that companion that helps you take those next steps and builds on that knowledge that you built about yourself with the right guidance for you.
Yeah. The way I've always sort of thought about it is if you are a person who is unbelievably focused and committed to your health, and let's say you do 2 wellness checkups with your primary care doctor per year, you go to a personal trainer for an hour, 2 hours per week, you got your 2 dentist appointments, you maybe go to a nutritionist once a month, maybe you have a therapist that you see weekly for an hour. Add up all of those hours for someone, and this is someone who's like on it, right? Add up all those hours, that's less than a week over the course of a year. So the question is, how do we provide that level of support for the other 51 weeks, right? Because again, your health is all the hours of all the days. Now, at the same time, like to your question about a sort of the Fitbit Air and a more ambient health tracker, right? You also don't want your nutritionist and your personal trainer like in your ear 24 hours a day, right?
Right.
So the idea that that they're there, that they are sort of, in Health Coach, all of these different sort of capabilities in Health Coach are there and keeping an eye. And when you want it, it's there.
So I don't know. Sometimes I think I might benefit from a nutritionist in my ear telling me what to eat and what not to eat. That's interesting. Have you guys thought about or talked about, maybe this is on a roadmap somewhere, but like being able to take that data and that Health Coach and that Google Health in general is collecting and give it back to those people you just described for that week of appointments when you add it all up? Like, have you thought about a way to like export this stuff and be like, hey doc, here's my reports from the last year. Like here are the vitals that my tracker has collected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at the core of this is a belief and a conviction that, users should really be in control of their data and should have the opportunity to share it, securely and safely with whomever they want, whether that is an expert like a clinician or their own fitness coach, their own in real life fitness coach, or it's a family member or a friend. And so that's absolutely part of the product and the roadmap. We have a handful of ways to share that data today with things like APIs and Health Connect and integrations like that. But we're also working on some things that are more built for that specific interaction with a medical professional and, walking into a primary care visit and being able to say, here are some key insights from my journey with Google Health.
Nice.
So I would say that most people have never had a trainer or anything like that. So with these, as people come as people start using the health coach, have you found that they naturally take to having a coach? Are people naturally, do they feel immediately comfortable having the idea of a personal coach, or is there some kind of learning period?
It's a great question, and I think not surprisingly we see people coming into the experience with very different backgrounds and in like various different health journeys. Folks who clearly have an established routine that they've been hammering on for 10 years and are looking for optimization. Folks who are just getting started on a journey. Folks whose journey has been consistent, but there's been a major life change, and now there's something new for them to experience. And I think each of their kind of initial interactions with the coach has been different. And I think one of the key focus areas for us is really thinking about how the coach meets you where you are at the start of that journey and throughout that journey. I think it's one of the reasons we've a lot of the experience tries to rely on, or at least put at the center, opportunities for conversational input and feedback loops, so that you as a user can share a bit more about where you are on your journey and how you want the coach to work with you.
Has this kind of taught you anything about yourselves when you're using these tools? Like, is there anything that's kind of been brought up back from your own experiences that you have thought, I didn't anticipate this to kind of to rear its head, as it were?
In some ways, I think using Health Coach, and I mentioned this before, and from sort of earlier dog food to now production, part of it is for me just naturally wanting to be open-minded about trying things, having had different coaches and personal trainers and gone through a lot of that more technical stuff, but like wanting to just be very open to how a Gemini-powered health coach might guide me. And for some things that are, quite specific, right? Like I'm training for a gravel bike race, right? A specific discipline within cycling and being able to say like it's a specific distance and, here's my target goal for a finishing time. And it's, the ability for it to, one, help me with the training for that. And I'm also looking at other sources and verifying, but that it's quite good. And just being able to have that conversation, because I've never hired a trainer for cycling. It's something that's just, kind of a hobby type thing. And so it's like I'm building a lot, I have a lot of trust in the guidance that I'm receiving. And then also, so that laid to me earlier, I said like, for me, taking a rest day where, hey, if I was supposed to be on the bike on Wednesday, but I didn't sleep well or I overdid it on Tuesday, and actually taking that guidance and changing my schedule, that's quite new for me. And in some ways, I was like, God, maybe for the past 20 years, whenever I felt kind of, I would feel a little crummy and gut my way through things, I was just not recovered and ready. And I was just stubborn, so like, the idea that I'm able to use the health coach to learn, and about myself, especially like as I'm older and more injury prone and, don't necessarily have the, same physical capabilities that I would have had, 10, 20 years ago. So it's been super valuable for me.
And so much of this conversation, right, and so much of the focus on the Fitbit Air specifically has been around not just the Google Health app redesign and relaunch in general, but specifically Health Coach, right? But Health Coach is a paid feature, which means there are going to be people who, after that 3-month trial period, do not stick with Health Coach. So what would you guys say the app redesign offers to those people who might, have tried Health Coach and said like, yeah, I like it, but I'm not going to pay the $10 a month for it or whatever. Like, they're still interacting with this app. What would you guys say they get out of this new redesign?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes back to that. There still is, in my mind, a ton of value in being able to engage with and track your data and your progress. And so one of the intents of Fitbit Air was to have a very accessible and affordable tracker that can do a lot of that great stuff, can track your sleep, can track your vitals, can give you insights into your exercise pattern. And, I think the intent with the non-coach version of the app is very much to bring that data and that progress tracking to life and make that easy for you. And I think we're also, some of our conversation today started around some of like the more team aspects of health or the collaborative or competitive aspects of health. And I do think those social and sharing connections can be a big part of that journey. And I think we're excited to continue to kind of build out in that area for our roadmap as well.
I kind of want to get into a little bit of just going back to the air for a second. It's more a case of we're at this. It almost feels like we're a rebirth, as it were. We mentioned that trackers have they've gone from this almost ubiquitous little strip on the side of your wrist to eventually tracking every single data under the sun. And we've now gone back I feel like with the Fitbit Air, it almost feels like a start of that again. We're going back to this simple tracker that just does the tracking thing. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to think about it. How much of that was kind of the wider public perception of technology in general is almost like overbearing to an extent. And I think this is one thing that's resonated with me, and I don't know if the other guys agree with me as well, is that having something so stripped back as a piece of hardware that still gives me access to this data that I maybe want, that the coaching side of things is very, very good. I know that Jonah, you mentioned it, that I've having the same experience where it's like, you should take a rest day. And I'm like, why do I need to do this? But it feels as though I'm interacting at my own volition, as opposed to this thing is a screen on my wrist. It's telling me everything I need to know. And it feels overbearing. How much of that was derived from all of this noise that's going on in the wider industry, the wider world, that people want to strip back to experience, but still maybe want the data at a later time and a later period?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is, I see kind of a trajectory with any new technology where new technologies often want to yell, hey, I'm here. Here's what I can do. EVs, right? Completely different styling cues. Why EVs, like all of them had to have blue details, things like that. And then at some point, people say like, oh, I get it. Electric vehicles are a thing. It's not a novel thing anymore. And then they can sort of be a little bit more quiet and start to, take on different identities and blend in. And I think the same, like if I think about where Fitbit started in terms of trackers, like remember like the Skittles, like amount of colors, and everyone says like, yeah, I'm part of this mission. I'm, right. and everyone sort of was wearing this loud and proud. And there's certainly still people who want to do that, but there are also people who want something that's more subtle. And I think Fitbit Air, just because of how small, we refer to the sort of main brain as the pebble, the technology piece that you pop out, because it's so small and flexible, it just enables us to kind of really think about this in a different way. I mean, the initial inspiration was a friendship bracelet. We wanted it to be that sort of easy to wear, right? And so that's why, it's so much slimmer and smaller and just wearable, because that was crucial for us in terms of the adoption. It's not to say that there aren't people, lots of them, who do want some real-time data on the wrist, right? We still have a family of other products, other Fitbit products, trackers with displays. Pixel Watch is part of our health ecosystem as well, where you get much more rich data visualization and sort of real-time stats. So for a lot of people, that's still going to be an important thing. But I think, again, as Taylor mentioned, we want to meet people where they are. And some people want something that's a little bit more quiet, and this idea of ambient tracking, I think, is very valuable.
It's awesome. Have you guys seen the little mounts people have made to put on like traditional watches?
Absolutely,
I'm obsessed with those. I have a Pebble pre-ordered. I have one of the Pebble pre-orders, and like I'm so excited to like get one of those mounts and combine the Pebble like e-ink like smartwatch experience with Fitbit tracking. That is like truly, whenever that thing gets here, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that's great about something that is slim and wearable. And if it does feel like a friendship bracelet, I also really like watches, just mechanical watches, because I find them fascinating. And now, I can get both, right? And even early in dog fooding, we were seeing people, whatever it is, their Seiko, their Rolex, people were jerry-rigging early, Fitbit Air proto devices to do exactly that. And so part of it is, we the other week we kind of released a hardware development kit, right? Because it's part of it is, let's have fun. Let people invent and make things, and figure out, different ways that they might wear them and integrate them in their life.
That's awesome.
I think one of the biggest compliments I can pay is that I am now a Fitbit Air guy. I ditched my Pixel Watch. So fantastic product. I've really enjoyed using it. And it's kind of, I guess it's a holistic product. It's one of those things it's part of my life. I don't necessarily have to do anything extra. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's probably resonated so well, especially with our team and hopefully the wider audience. Thanks guys for giving us your time today. Really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Hopefully we'll have you on again at some time in future. Hopefully you'll have a wider array of Fitbit Air lineup, and I want to speak to you more about it. And definitely we should set up a leaderboard where we can compete on our step count and cardio load and everything else in between. Because I will very much make that my goal to not be at the bottom.
Can we also compete on who takes the most recovery days?
Possibly. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys. Really, really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Just want to say a big thank you to Jonah and Taylor for joining us here. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and we will be back next week, regular scheduled programming. Thanks for joining us here on Pixelated, and I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Pixelated, a 9 to 5 Google podcast. If you enjoyed the show, we ask that you rate and review it on the podcast platform of your choice, and help spread the word by sharing the show with friends or on social media.